Try that. So, event. So everyone can see this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Alrighty. So, welcome. Thanks all for joining. My name is Matej, and here is a problem I was attacking from different fronts for the past half a year. So basically, every every idea starts with a problem definition. And for me, because this is more a hobby art section for now, this idea is pretty straightforward. So the idea is that I'm an avid hiker. I really like to hike, but I live in Ljubljana, and unfortunately, I'm lazy. So when I wake up, I really wanted to see what the weather is like in Gorenjska region, the region where I like to hike, and that is convenient to hike in before work, before all the dailies, before the life starts. So I want to see what the weather is like, what the forecast prognosis is like. And, you know, I don't really trust the graphs per se. I really like to refer also to the visual clues. So basically, my problem is that there are 3 relevant cameras in the whole Gorenjska region. There are more cameras than just the 3 of them, obviously, but they're either pointed at churches or they're black and white, some other are infrared and stuff like that. So basically, you can see beautiful Kranjska Gora, you can see Bled in the direction towards Stow, and then you can see Ljubelj Pass towards Zelenica and Begunjčica. So based on those 3 cameras, for the past, I don't know, 3 years, I was relying to not be wet as I hike, and that's pretty much how I was relying on myself until the problem got so big that I decided, well, you could say that Corona made me do it, but I decided to do something about it. So I wanted to see what the view is, what the weather is like in Tržič, the city that I'm coming from. And before I jump into any more discussion, you know, there's a bit about myself as well. So this is you could hardly say that this is my first rodeo when it comes to photography. So basically, I am a landscape photographer, and I'm doing that for the past, I don't know, a decade or so. I was a wedding photographer doing photo shoots professionally for the past 5 years. And for 2 years, I was a program manager for Spherical Visions, trying to do systems and bringing cameras to life for Sphericam, the startup that tried to disrupt the 360 spherical vision world. Just for the reference, my Instagram is also full of mountains, so you can see how this problem is important to me. So before we jump into the code. By the way, the code will be a very, very small part of this presentation. It's more the idea of, how the idea progressed into somewhat ready alpha stage product. Here are those beloved mountains of mine. So basically, this is what is actually accessible, at least for me. And I know that there are also mountains in the Škofja Loka region. It's just that I prefer to choose Karavanke. And if we refer back to those 3 relevant cameras, these are the field of views that these cameras cover. So you can see that, you know, this is not nearly enough to understand how the weather changes, and they're not even covering the closest mountains that I like to hike in before. And even if I add the view from my window in Ljubljana, this hardly increases the relevance, especially if you consider the fog, right? So here comes the solution. The solution was to buy a Raspberry camera and a simple PyCam module and start taking photos. So basically the idea was, let's just take a photo, let's connect to the server, take the photo, and maybe make the photo accessible over the, web server that is just the standard Apache. And when I had that, and I was very, very pleased with that, came the idea of, oh, let's make a time lapse. So this is the script that I wrote. I know that it lacks the first line, But I have to tell you that, yeah, I've been a developer, a hobby art one. I was developing in Visual Basic. And basically that was 15 years ago. I have brief experience with HTML and CSS, but mainly just modifying the basic WordPress scripts. And then I was a product manager for the last 10 years. So basically it was a big plunge going into the Linux system for me and all that stuff. The most problematic with this script that would be perfectly good is that I wanted to have the datetime format in the file name. So that's something that I really want to have. And this just didn't, I just couldn't achieve this by modifying the code. So I looked elsewhere and I found the coolest Ely coffee can there is. Photosyn is a simple Python script that basically runs on Raspberry Pi. It takes photos until the battery runs out. It's a while loop and it works. So basically this is very, very cool for me because now I have the portable stuff. I'm starting thinking about how to solve some problems. I'm attacking Python, and at that moment, please do believe I had no idea what indentation is and why is it important. I had no idea about PEP8, and you know I was really a noob, a beginner, and I had to learn all that. So based on that, I make it work, right? Per design, and then I extended it because I wanted to have some more features, obviously. So as the list of features grow, like as I was having a working time lapse and I was placing it all over our house, I wanted to have like, okay, I'm lazy, right? Remember, I wanted to see the weather from my bed. So it would be awesome if I could access picture on the web, not just via server, because then everybody could see it. And it would be so awesome if the time-lapse video would be first made, so built together and then uploaded automatically for me so that I wouldn't do all the work, right? So I tried and I implemented a lot of features. You could say hours and hours of Stack Overflow later, right? The first script was completed and I was pretty proud of it. And I showed it to the Python community. On this note, really appreciate all the work you guys are doing for me or have been doing for me. You know, all the critical debates and everything. And if there's one thing that I learned from it, is that you're always refactoring. So basically here is basically the version 1 and then version 2 of my code, and then the coming soon, hopefully version 3 of my code. And I know that probably you will see a lot of errors even in the version 2 and version 3 or places for optimization, but I remind you, this is a hobby art project for me, right? I'm learning as I go, and I'm kind of proud of it. So basically, yeah, the version 1 was working, and it was time for the QA. As I said, you know, it's dirty and it's prototypey, and you know, it's uses a lot of duct tape, right? But it worked. And then I progressed from QA to the field testing. So I built the first housings. I placed it on top of the house of my parents' house. And just a small comment: do not ever, you know, underestimate the QA session, because we were going up and down that ladder for about 200 times already. So you know, just for reference, things do not work, and it's not convenient if you have to unplug and plug the power to see the camera again. Yeah, so there were also some obvious pitfalls, right? Some of them legit and some of them, you know, less obvious. So as you're developing stuff, and if you're coming from project that I'm coming from, right, you're having all these ideas about how the things should be. And I learned a lot from not implementing them the right way. I learned a lot that from the straight fact that, you know, I lost almost a month of full-time man work, and probably it was more. It was just days, not overtime, due to research, dead ends, out of scope, or like not important features. So, you know, I was doing, you know, just like testing the Pi camera. If I remember my Spericam days, like I was so pushy of the development teams, you know, why don't we remove this noise? And there I was, you know, just like trying to get the best image out of my camera module. And it took me like a week. And there's one more anecdote from this. I was implementing a feature. I don't really know what it was, but it was something with regards to, you know, storing pictures in RAM and then storing it back and like stuff like that. And there were different ideas coming from the Python community, from the Slack channel, like from all over the place. And I remember Roman said, I'm just waiting for someone to propose a Redis solution. And at that moment, I was implementing a Redis queue for 2 days already. So, you know, just like this is obvious pitfalls that made me realize as a product manager that sometimes things take time, that you need spikes, that you need researches and stuff like that. So version 2 is coming along, right? It's ready. So I'm really proud on that one because it has sunrise and sunset capture with offsets. So now I can input the geolocation and, you know, it would automatically calculate the sunrise and sunset. Before that, I had to go on location to my parents' house and basically change it, hard coding it every couple of days to, you know, not show too much of the blank picture. I'm having overnight capture, multiple captures allowed, and, you know, user settings are now a separate file, which is really convenient for the users. The separate file is still .py, and it's not a dict or anything, and it just because it works for now. It's dirty and it's hacky, and it works for me because as I was talking about what the user would like and what the users want and stuff like that, I got another comment from Python community. How many users do you have? And yes, that made me realize I need to get more users. So I'm trying to build a somewhat stable alpha or beta stage camera that I could introduce to the world so that I can see if there is, you know, merit to that, or is it good enough for me and it will work and that's okay. So I extended the project yet again. So here be Dragons, Django. I designed a website so that I connected Stripe payment gateway. I worked on SEO, and as you can see, the site is available at not live yet, not too bad, because yeah, I ran out of time, or it's just not that important yet. And there's also another addition to this. It's a second site in React that basically shows us on the left side the current state, the current photo of the camera that is not older than 5 minutes. And on the other side, it shows us the videos captured that were uploaded to the Timelapse repository on YouTube. If you will click on that temporary link on Netlify, you will see that I do need to go back and I do need to reboot because for some reason it stopped working at 8:30 today. So if I quickly overview how this works, how the system works, and don't worry, I'll share the source code at the end. But there's no point looking at the code because it will just be a peer review of trying to find my mistakes. I'm looking forward if somebody will take the time, put some comments in. I'm always for improving, but here's how it works. So basically we're having a capture and basically a timer that goes on. So when camera starts, basically 2 cron scripts would load. The first one would be for starting the capture. So the config file is loaded, and then basically every minute it checks if it's time to capture a shot. And if there's a time for capturing, it would create a capture folder, and then it would run a capture sequence. So every X seconds, I have set it for 30 seconds, it would create a photo and it would store a photo in my beloved now time date format, just as I like it. And then additionally for every X photo, for every 10th photo, it would store additional copy into a different folder so that I have a compressed image of everything that went online separately, not in the source files. That file would additionally be copied into the web folder. And then I have the second cron script that will check this folder for changes for every 30 seconds. And if there are changes, it would upload the changed photo on the web. How do I upload it? I'm using a hack and I'm uploading, I know, to me to GitHub. So basically, yes, I am committing 160 times per day for now. It's free, it still works, and yes, I know the AVS is in pipeline. So basically, when new photo is uploaded to the GitHub, the Netlify page in React would show the latest photo, and then it would periodically, once per minute, check for updates. So even if you have the page loaded and ready, it's there. And this is how the capture works. Happy to explain more if anybody wants to go into details. And then we're having the post-capture operations. So now imagine the first slide being that one big blue circle. And then the first time after the capture is finished, the script would automatically create time-lapse videos. Now I have multiple settings for 4K, for HD. You can put in whatever you want. Then it would upload videos to different YouTube playlists. By default, YouTube allows you uploading up to 6 videos per day. And after that, you can apply for the extension of the limitation, and it's free. And then it would compress captured images, produce logs, and then go to sleep for 1 minute. And then it would basically periodically check if there are any captures available or live. And now what are the next steps, right? Well, I need to get the users, right? I need to test the product market fit. I would like to research more, and basically I'm currently playing around with third-party camera support. So I have a dirty prototype here. So this is a split board that basically connects to the HDMI port. And I was testing with that, but that's not the best solution because only GoPros are using HDMI out. None of the Chinese knockoffs do. And even GoPros don't use it from the version 7 and up. So the HDMIs will quickly become obsolete. So right now I'm experimenting with Wi-Fi, and I'm trying to go solar. So the idea is to have a solar panel and some 18650s, some I2C that would basically check if the batteries are loaded, boot up, take a photo, send it over 3G, and shut down the camera. So, you know, I have plenty of things to tinker around. The whole idea is that I got really excited about coding, and I'm not even a developer, right? So, you know, you could say that Corona break made me good because it realized me how little I knew of development, though I was involved in development per se for the past 10 years or so. So the GitHub code is available here. I will play this time lapse, and you can check. I'm not sure how the frame rate will go on the Zoom if somebody can spot our neighbor's sheep in the bottom right corner. So you can see how the 30-second time lapse looks like. I'm pretty satisfied with how it's turned out so far. And there they are. And that's pretty much it when it comes to what I have presented for you. You can find me at matej@matejmeglic.com, and I also try to write about product development and my passions for both of them. I would like to thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to all the pull requests with enhanced code, and if somebody wants to join me on the project, ping me. Thank you very much to Python community for all the extended support over these past months. Thank you for holding up with me in times of trouble, for always giving me the advice that I needed and pushing me in the right direction and pushing me not to quit. It was amazing. Thank you, guys. Una?
Thank you, Matej. That was really interesting. I liked it very much. And okay, we're already getting questions.
Oh no! Okay.
Yeah, which in itself, yeah, is proof that it was a great talk, I think. So actually, you know, if anyone, yeah, would really like to ask their question live, you can, you know, raise your hand and unmute yourself. But for now, I will read the ones. Wait, where's the? Yeah, I will read the ones that have already been posted in the chat.
Okay.
So one is from Marcel, and he's asking, do you have a cron job that executes those scripts periodically, or is it all just one Python program that executes everything on time?
Yeah, I was thinking about the cron job, but actually it is one script. So basically it's two Python scripts. One executes all the capture and all the post-capture features, as you would say. So like creating time lapse, uploading to YouTube, resizing, creating logs, stuff like that. And the second one is basically also just a cron job, but they're just started at the boot or like a couple of seconds after the boot. And that one basically checks for periodically for file change to upload to the webs. The reason why I went with Python and not with the cron job is because it allowed me more flexibility in terms of, you know, how I wanted to structure this. So basically how everything works, it's still a while loop, right? So once everything is live, it's a while loop. So it basically loads everything and then it checks for the capture. And when the capture is set, I have different parameters on which I am loading the file name, so folder name, and then the file names. So how these two are generated, because if it's overnight capture, I want to have both days in the folder capture and stuff like that. And it was just easier for me to cover everything in one Python scripts, though it might be suboptimal.
Okay, so thank you. And everyone wants to know if you're using Redis now or what. I mean,
No,
Marco wants to know, but
no,
everybody wants to know.
God, no. Like there was a really good anecdote. Like I wanted to for this second Python script that periodically checks for updates. So I wanted to implement the watchdog. Okay, but then the watchdog would work, right? So everything worked except that it was committing to GitHub 2 times. So like I had duplicated sessions for everything, and I couldn't overcome that. And then I asked for help. Like after like I probably lost like 2 days on the watchdog because I just remembered vaguely that I heard some developers say watchdog at some point. And then I got a response. But you know, basic script that would basically run every 30 seconds would do the same with like 3 lines of code. I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. So you can see that, you know, I could see myself easily get distracted and just running in one direction and not even considering the alternatives. So no Redis queue for now, unfortunately. Luckily.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so does anyone have any other questions?
So I've never used Raspberry Pi. Like, how quick is it to open, to start, like to open the package and get it connected? Like, what does it even connect to? Wi-Fi or Bluetooth? Like, how does it get internet, stuff like that?
Right. So I'm using Raspberry Pi 4, so the latest one. And I also was using the one that I was showing you before, the HDMI connected is a third model, so it's a bit older. And the only change is that the fourth generation is able to process time-lapse 4K. The third one is only able to do it with full HD. That's the only reason. So basically, it's really easy. So how this works is that Raspberry Pi has all these ports, right? And I'm connecting it to the USB-C, which goes in somewhere here. And then basically I have 2 outs. So the camera is connected to this flex cable. So imagine this being the camera, right? And then it has the Wi-Fi on board. So I'm using that. And I'm having a USB 3.0 connected to the extension cable, connected to the hard drive that is basically storing all the data. So I started working so that I was storing everything for the day on the SD card itself. It's powered on the SD card, right? And then I moved everything once it was done to the HDD. But then through discovery, we figure out that this will basically burden the SD card to totally overwhelm it short term, like we're talking probably a couple of months. So I basically moved the logic and just store everything to the external hard drive for now. I have the scenario open for like just using this without any storage. So just like creating pictures, by the way, this creates about 2,000 pictures, 2,000 images per day with this section. It's 14 gigs uncompressed and then 2.8 compressed. And basically it's enabled so that it works like this, so that you could just plug it over the power bank or something. Yeah, and it just connects to the home Wi-Fi at this point.
Cool, thanks.
Okay.
I have a question about, have you thought about video surveillance and how this ties in with the law that we have? It's Personal Data Protection Act. So when you're filming, technically, I think you're not allowed to film outside your property. And do you know how to integrate this within this framework?
I have no idea. I thought about this. I was very cautious about what I record. I also deleted all the features that are not that basically contained any people in it or stuff like that, because I was testing. I live in Ljubljana, so I was testing just like through my window, and there were obviously some people there. And I would argue that like even me, like being the camera guy, wouldn't like to be filmed at all times, right? So what I did is I positioned the camera in a way that basically doesn't affect people's lives. So basically what I'm filming is the neighbor's meadow, right? And then there's the view of Tržić that is 300 meters away. So pretty much it's indistinguishable. But yeah, like I believe that you should be very cautious about how you position this. And I believe that this is also the reason why the existing webcams are positioned in a place like they are, you know, not providing that much value because it's risky. And somebody needs to be an owner. And I do believe that like, if I would go on, so like I'm trying to, you know, test the market with some beta prototypes, right? So they come with warranty as is, right? And I'm willing to work on it. And like I said, if somebody wants to, feel free to experiment as well. But yeah, like if this would be a product, I believe that it would have to come with some sort of, you know, guidance and also some sort of service. That's how I see it for now. But no, yeah, like legally you can only shoot on your own property. So if you're looking just straightforward from you know, my use case, I'm having the camera on our house, right? And I'm shooting out, but actually it should be on a pole shooting into my house. So that's how technically the surveillance should be done.
Yeah, I think if you blur out property that's not yours or public property, I think you can film public property, but you have to have a sign saying that it's being filmed and a contact number, and I forgot the details, but I think the Informacijski Pooblaščenac has some guidelines on their website if you want to look into that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I need to. And Samuel asks, what about cows? Did they consent to record them? They're sheep and they really like being on camera, you know, just like saying, don't want to disclose too much, but you know, they really like to be on camera. Now, I have no consent over the sheep, but I have consent of the sheep's owner, if that works.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much all for now from the chat. So last call if anyone wants to change their mind and add something, ask something, you know, talk about sheep, whatever.
or ping me on the email. I'm available. Also, the presentation is in GitHub under the pull request. Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great talk. And yeah, okay. So I guess today's meetup is not going to be a long one because we only have one length talk, and that was it. So now I'm going to give a lightning talk. So I'm nervous, but yes. I guess we should just begin. So can I, Roman, can I just share my screen, or you know what we were talking about before?
I think you can do it.
You know, about the being made host and stuff.
No, I think Drawer enabled everything. Just
Oh, okay.
Your screen and
okay.
It
1
works.
second. One second. Okay. Okay, so can everybody see this?
Yep.
Yes? Okay. So, 1 second. Okay. Let's begin. So today I'm going to talk about Python decorators, and unfortunately I'm not going to be talking about this, even though this is also really relevant in my opinion, but I'm going to be talking about these. So most of you have probably seen this syntax before, especially if you've been working with web frameworks. But Python decorators are considered to be a somewhat advanced feature of the language. So many people seem to believe that they're really complicated. So today I'm attempting to show that they're not really that scary. So what are Python decorators really? Well, in Python, functions are first-class objects, which means that they can be assigned to variables, they can be passed to functions as arguments, and they can be returned from functions. So that's really all that a decorator is. It's a function that takes in a function as an argument and then basically just adds something to it and then returns a new function. So let's look at a really simple example. Okay, so here we have this really simple function, DragonPy, that just returns a DragonPy lowercase string. So what if we wanted the string to be uppercase? Well, of course we could do this because Python has a built-in upper method for that. But imagine that we didn't want to do this because we don't want to explicitly change the implementation of this function. We want a solution that's more general, more reusable. So we basically want to decorate the function. So we implement a decorator. So yeah, this simple example I think is a good way to show something that I'm going to call the anatomy of a decorator. So let's look at this code more closely. That's the same code as before, of course. So here we have, of course, obviously the outer function. It's called uppercase in our case. And then this here is the inner function that's called the wrapper. And it is being defined inside the outer function, and it's also being returned from it. So then here is, So then here is the function that's being passed into the decorator as an argument. And here it is actually being called. And, here is just being assigned to a variable, and then here the Python's built-in upper method is being called on it. And then it's being returned from the inner function. So of course, real life examples of decorators are probably going to be way more complicated than that. Because, all three of these functions can, take arguments as well, and all three of them can be much, much more complicated. But I think that even when you are looking at a really complicated decorator implementation, it can be beneficial to just look for these basic elements that pretty much all decorators have in common. So, if you just look for the outer function, okay, that's obvious, and then look for the inner function, where it's being defined and, where it's being returned. And then just look for the function that's being passed into as an argument, and then just ask yourself what is actually being done with it. So this is of course the part that can get a lot more complicated, but even so, I think that this approach can help us build a sort of mental model of what the decorator really is and really does. And it can give us an entry point to understanding even really complicated large pieces of code. So, okay, now let's go back to our example. We've implemented our decorator and now we just have to use it. So we do this like this. We assign it like this, and our decorator was called uppercase, as you remember, and we pass in our function that you remember was called DragonPy. And then, you have to put the parentheses here in order to actually call it. And as expected, we get the DragonPy uppercase string output. So now you're probably gonna ask, okay, then what about the add syntax from the beginning? Well, that's really just syntactic sugar. So this small thing is actually equivalent to this larger thing. These two are, completely equivalent. This is just syntactic sugar for that. It's just a shorter, nicer way to put it. And also when we do it like that, it's much easier to call it because we really just call the DragonPy function. And as expected, we get the same output. Thank you. Okay. If everyone has taken a good look at this decorated Python, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.